Hi, I just wanted to go through a sample essay that one of my students wrote last semester as a way to help you think about how you can respond to your classmates in peer review, as well as revise your own argumentative essay here. So remember that when I ask you to do these peer responses, the point is to help out your classmates, help them to improve their essays, but also to help improve your own essay in the process of doing that peer review. Ultimately, when you look at somebody else's paper, I think you're kind of comparing it to your own, right? And you're seeing what's working and what's not. I think that if you are kind of asking yourself these questions that I posted above this video, as well as you're using the grading rubric that I posted and kind of going through each of those areas, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get an A on this essay. That process of consciously looking for things to improve, it can be time consuming, but I think it's worth it if you can improve your grade by going through that process. So, like I said, this is an essay that one of my students submitted last semester, exactly the same assignment that you have. I should mention that this paper ended up getting a B- or a C+. It's around that level. So, there are things that definitely need improving here, but there are things that are working as well. So I thought I'd point out some of those things. One thing that I would say, something I was thinking when this person was writing the paper, is the topic that you choose is really important. And in my opinion, a topic like abortion is really hard to write about well. And honestly, it's a topic that I would tend to avoid if you have a choice. There are just certain topics that have been so overdone that it's really hard to write about them in a new and interesting way. And that should be your goal whenever you write an essay. Can I talk about this in a way that hasn't been done a million times? And if your answer is no, I would probably opt for something different, right? So, the abortion issue, there are very clear sides to it. People have been debating about it for years. I just think it's hard to give sort of an original take on this. So, topics like this, topics like should marijuana be legalized, that sort of stuff, frankly, are just kind of boring topics for instructors to read. If you are writing on one of those things, obviously I'm going to grade it, stick with it at this point, but just know that there are probably ways to be more original when coming up with topics. That being said, let's kind of go through and look at what she did here. So, one of the things you should think about is, does the paper include enough background information? So this writer does a little bit. In the introduction, she talks about the two main sides on this abortion issue, pro-life, pro-choice. So that's good to do, and probably, the amount that you would want in your intro. But if I scroll to the very end of the paper, you'll see, whoops, this is the last page, that this paper ended up only being 4 pages and several lines on page 5, right? What that tells me is that this person sort of ran out of gas or time, I don't know what, right? But if you're not meeting the page limit, that means you need to do something else to try to develop this essay. With the abortion topic, there are a million ways you could talk about this, so I don't think that's the problem. But, one way this writer could have made the paper longer and meet the page limit is by adding more of a background section right after the intro, right? She could talk about, why abortion has been such a controversial issue in the United States in particular, right? How people's views on it have changed over time. How people, feel about organizations like Planned Parenthood. Doing just a nice background paragraph near the beginning before you immediately jump right into the argument can be really effective in helping the audience, kind of understand the basics of this issue before deciding whether they agree with you or not, right? So again, I think that was maybe a flaw in this paper. She jumped almost immediately, like you see, this is the paragraph after the intro. She jumped almost immediately right into the argument. So if that's you and you're feeling like maybe you're running short, maybe think about adding a background paragraph right after your intro. Going along with that, I think that you may need to do some defining of the issue or topic that you're discussing. When you're writing, I would assume that not everybody is fully aware of this subject you're going to talk about, right? Again, most people understand what abortion is. If they're Americans, they understand why this is a controversial topic. But, don't assume that everybody has a lot of knowledge about your subject. So this person never really defines what abortion is. So I would maybe take a sentence or two in the intro and give a definition of abortion, or abortion, how this writer is going to use it in her paper. So again, maybe that's something that could be added as well. Let's look at her thesis, because this is something that I actually think that she does really well in the paper. So if we look at the last sentence of the introduction, which is exactly where the thesis should be, she says the termination of pregnancy should be done only in the first trimester, and for very strong reasons, like in cases of rape or in cases when this pregnancy endangers the mom's life. So, there's some little wording issues. This is a non-native English speaker, I should say, so that's probably why that's happening. But, and she might actually say abortion rather than termination of pregnancy, since abortion's really the topic here. But other than those little nitpicky things, there are some good things that she's doing in here. One is that she includes a should in here. The termination of pregnancy should be done. When you add a should into your thesis, that almost guarantees that you're making an argument, right? So if you're not sure if your thesis is strong enough or argumentative enough, if you can somehow add a should in there, like what should be done or what should not happen, that's going to sort of guarantee that it's making an argument in some way. So that's good. What I think is also good is she doesn't just say abortion is wrong and should never happen. Instead, she qualifies the thesis and says in what cases she thinks that abortion is okay and when, right? Termination of pregnancy should be done only in the first trimester and for cases of rape or when the pregnancy endangers mom's life. That's pretty specific, right? I think that's much better than just saying abortion is wrong or abortion should be legal, right? It's more specific and narrow. So that works well. Once you figure out what your partner's thesis is, then I would identify what reasons they're giving to support that thesis. A, are they actually supporting the thesis? And B, are they good reasons? Are there reasons that somebody could easily argue against? Because those are things to point out for sure. So in this writer's first body paragraph, one of her reasons why she says abortion in most cases should be illegal is that there are a lot of parents seeking to adopt a child, and when you have an abortion, you're denying a family the opportunity to give that eventual baby a good life, right? So that's a pretty good reason, right? There are a lot of people who love to have a baby but just don't have that opportunity, right? In the next paragraph, she gives another reason. She says that abortion is not only bad for the baby, obviously, but it's potentially bad for the woman's health. And she talks later in the paragraph about how there is an increased risk for developing breast cancer for women who have abortions. So again, that's a pretty good reason to potentially reconsider it, right? Next paragraph, she shifts from physical health problems from abortion and talks about how abortion can lead to mental health problems in women, right? So again, I think she's giving pretty good reasons here. She only gives 3 main reasons. She probably could have given more. That would have helped to make the paper longer. But the ones she gives are pretty good, pretty strong, I think. Then what we want to ask is, are these reasons that she is giving, is she using evidence to help support them? So probably in your paper or your partner's papers, every time they give a reason for their claim, it should pretty soon be followed up by some evidence to help prove that reason or illustrate it in some way, right? So in this paragraph, for example, this is the one about adoption. She gives this statistic: 600,000 abortions happen per year in the United States, at least in 2016. So, I mean, that's maybe like an interesting statistic to include. But if the point of this paragraph is, to try to prove that adoption is a good reason not to abort your unborn child, then the statistic doesn't really match the point, right? Just pointing out that there are 600,000 abortions per year doesn't prove that, women should not have abortions because of, potential adoptive parents missing out, right? They don't really match up. So I think it's maybe fine to include this statistic, but what I would add is, after she makes this point that adoptive parents would love to have the opportunity to adopt a child, maybe what would be good is to give a statistic about how many parents are looking to adopt a child, or a statistic about how many women are unable to give birth themselves, right? Or give a quotation from a person who chose to give their child up for adoption rather than have an abortion, and how that worked out well, right? But again, always give evidence that really supports that reason that you're giving. If you look in the next paragraph, this is the one about physical health issues that result from abortion. In this case, the writer quoted from this professor of surgery at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. So this person she's quoting is an expert in the field. That's a good sign, right? And the doctor or professor of surgery says, a woman who chooses abortion leaves her breast with more places for cancer to start, blah, 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 right? So this is a good use of evidence, and evidence that supports the claim. Abortion can lead to physical health problems, right? Let's look at the next paragraph. So here we have another quotation to support the point. This is the one about mental health issues from abortion. She tells us that this is from a scientist, researcher from Norway, who did this study about women who had had abortions. And so again, this is like an expert in her field. And this woman says women who underwent abortions had significantly higher anxiety scores up to 5 years after the pregnancy termination. Again, that's good evidence that supports the point of this paragraph, or the reason that abortion can lead to mental health issues. Let's finally look at how the citations are being done really quickly. So if I go to this paragraph here, the citation says abortion surveillance, paragraph 1. Remember that if you don't have an author for a source, you want to put a shortened version of the article title in quotation marks. So these just need to be in quotation marks. A couple of this writer's sources began with the word abortion, so it's good that she used 2 words here so that we can know which source she's talking about. And again, she's giving paragraph numbers, so that works well. I did want to point out her works cited page, though, because it's kind of a mess, right? Take a look at this on your own. Again, you can sort of rewind this video and look at it, but this writer's missing a lot of information. The formatting is messed up. So this is something to look at in your partner's essays as well. So take a look, and hopefully this stuff will help you when you're thinking about revising.